Hello to you, the viewer, and to you, the Games Done Quick staff, and welcome to the Centurion, a modded mission in Steel Crate Games' Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. The man on your screen, Candela, is about to take on this mission, in which the objective is to disarm 100 modules on a 100-minute ticking time bomb. This game and mission is typically played co-op, with a so-called diffuser looking at the bomb, and typically two so-called experts reading instructions on how to disarm these modules from a potentially confusing bomb manual. However, Candela is going to do this entirely alone, by looking at the manual and bombs simultaneously. Though this removes certain communication difficulties, the task ends up invariably harder due to the heavier workload imposed by experting for himself. By the way, my name is Greg, aka Yabba Guy, and I defused the Centurion on a team with Candela, along with Espik23, that's ESPIK23, on YouTube, and he played the role of diffuser. And I hope my insight helps. Notice that Candela is starting by looking at bitmaps while the lights are out. Of course, once the lights come on, as they do now, the 100-minute timer starts out. The first thing you'll do is look at the so-called edge work, which are for example, the serial port in the bottom left corner and the serial number in the top right corner. Of course, the bomb's double-sided, so he'll be looking at the backside of the bomb for more widgets, including that battery in the top right corner. There are 5 modules in particular that will be catching Candela's attention throughout. One of them is that red keypad called Forget-Me-Not. Every time he solves a module and at the start of the bomb, and the solve indicated by that green light, for example, on anagrams, a new digit will appear. He not only has to remember to check that digit, but also perform a mathematical digit with each one. The second module is that needy knob, which you heard beeping and lighting up there. It's not a module he can solve, it's one that he has to repeatedly do. It will constantly demand his attention and demand that he set the knob to the correct position, based on the configuration of the LEDs. Right now, he started on Who's on First, which is actually a module from the base game of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. But when the lights went out, he went after English Test, which you see was still lit up here. Now, the third module to mention is a pair of keys called Turn the Keys. There are certain modules, including Who's on First, which he's looking at right now, that he has to solve in advance of the keys. There are certain other modules which he must not solve in advance of the keys. There are, in all, 6 modules that are user-created. Actually, the majority of the modules on this bomb are user-created. I should say there are 6 modded modules, user-created modules. That's the last we'll hear of that alarm clock. Sorry if it startled you. There are 6 modules that he has to solve in advance of the keys that are modded, and potentially up to 2 that are from the base game of Keep Talking. Before he can turn the 2 keys. Orientation cube was another such one. That was a quick solve. He had to rotate that cube in his mind, and he is really good at keeping his time down on that. This is 2 bits where he has to get a 2-letter code and then carefully punch it into that keypad. 3 queries and a submission. The trap with 2 bits is that the keypad is a bit finicky. If he starts typing before the 2 blanks appear, while the result is on screen, for example, he gets an error and gets a strike. And strikes are obtained on any module, including that knob, including any module where he makes a mistake. He's allowed 10 strikes, but nonetheless, any strike will set him back. Hopefully not rattle him. Surely it won't. Continuing on 2 bits now. That 2 bits noise is always stressful, but he's got it right. Always checking that Forget-Me-Not red keypad after every single solve. Listening, another pre-keys module.
I just took a wrong exit, and I'll be there right.
That poor taxi driver never seems to know where he's going, huh? But Taxi Dispatch will give him a 5-character code, which he'll enter into that keypad. He's got it. You may have seen the 4th module that caught his attention. It's that single key. It's keyed up for 27 minutes and 42 seconds as he takes care of the button, another base module from the base game, But turn the key, he has to turn the key simply at the exact time when the timer matches the display time on the module. And finally, the fifth and final module was the one that made that Family Feud Fast Money beep. It's called Souvenir. It's on the bottom right side of this bomb as you look at it, and it asks Candela about details from various modules, namely details that cannot be accessed after they're solved. For example, it's asking about the listening code. He can't play the tape again, so hopefully he noted down either the listening noise or the listening code. Of course he did. He's on to round keypad now. This has its basis in the normal keypad module from the original game, but round keypad has a slightly more difficult dimension to it. Namely, he has to find the symbols in a column and then avoid those symbols and then press the other ones instead. It ain't easy, but he's got it right. And already 10 solves just 5 minutes into the bomb. You notice he peeks right. He actually has a physical knob manual page on his desk for easy reference. This is Battleship, where he's trying to find the missing ship pieces. He's allowed to take a number of radars based on the edge work, the ports and battery I mentioned earlier, as well as the serial number. Those give him little clues, and then his remaining clues come from those numbers in the rows and columns, as well as the indications of the ship lengths. There's one ship of length 3, 2 ships of length 2, and a single 1-dot ship. He's got a single column of 2, actually. He's found both the ship pieces there, but he hasn't found that inference. But, bottom line, he got it done accurately. 11 down, 89 to go for Candela. That knob needs to be set right. There we go. This is Crazy Talk, yet another pre-keys module. He has to find the phrase in the manual, flip the switch down when the timer ends in this case, a 6, and up when it ends in a 3. And he's looking around for another pre-keys module, and let's see here. It's color flash. It's based on those Stroop tests where the color doesn't really match the word. The manual page is asking him questions such as, do you see consecutive words with different colors, or do you see the word yellow in red color? And then he has to press yes or no, either at a specific time. Every now and again he gets told maybe press no anytime, which might actually have been the case here. I'm not 100% certain. The RNG tends to even out over time. There is a lot of RNG in terms of how easy or hard some of these modules are. It's part of the fun. So he's looking around, he's trying to make sure he's got all the pre-keys modules. If he's missed one, of course, he's going to get a strike when he tries to turn the keys. He thinks he's got them all, he turns right then left, and he does have them all right indeed. So that is one of the 5 major concerns out of the way. The pair of keys, turn the keys, is now done. There is now no such module that demands a solve order from Candela, so now he's just going to take the modules in order, going more or less line by line. Starting with this one, LED encryption was a tricky one. By taking the alphanumeric position of the letters and multiplying it by a certain number based on the colored squares above, for example, he's on the second stage, he takes that second square orange, which tells him to multiply by 7. It's asking which letter times that number equals the letter diagonally adjacent. He also has to note down all these letter presses for Souvenir. Got it again. This is switches now, where he has to set the switches to the positions indicated by the green lights. However, there are certain switch positions, which are illegal, such as, for example, only the third one up, which would be a very illegal gesture indeed. This is perspective pegs. This is a delightful module. Candela has to twist the pegs all matter of ways, looking at for which one is the most of one color. And then he has to look around the perimeters of each of the pegs to find a colorful sequence. And then eventually his answer is going to be a sequence of 3 colors, which he'll have to press down, which will come visible when he views all the pegs from a certain angle. Did you see in the bottom right corner that was Espic 23? That's our diffuser. Hello, Espic. Candela's now looking around. His answer is that blue, red, blue he saw from that angle. So he's going to press top, top left, and then top right. And he gets it right. Now he's on to neutralization. He's got 10 something or rathers of a yellow something or rather. It's an acid. And then he has to, make a mathematical calculation to determine what base to neutralize it with, whether he has to turn the filter on or off, and how many drops he has to offset that up. Gosh, he's quick with that. Titrated already. That module usually takes me a couple of minutes, and he made mincemeat out of that one. Simon States is next. It's kind of like the Simon games you had as a kid, and actually a base module called Simon Says and Keep Talking. But, of course, there's multiple colors flashing. I say of course a lot. Catch me. Hopefully I don't use that verbal crutch too much. But it's a 4-stage module, and his sequence grows, so he pressed blue the last stage, now he adds in red. That single green is fortunate. On this particular stage, he's allowed to just press that color. And then he's lucky again because once he's pressed 3 colors, the 4th stage says, press the remaining color. Notice he still waited for Simon States to complete, not because the module insisted on it, but because Souvenir might ask him about the aspect on the 4th stage. Could ask him about any of the stages, but he had to be careful. Fizzbuzz is that counting game where multiples of 3 are fizz, multiple of 5s are buzz, multiples of 3 and 5 are fizzbuzz. But you can't just take the numbers on screen. Based on the colors and the edge work of the bomb, Candela has to use a table to add a certain offset to each of the digits, then calculate it. There is, interestingly, a rule where if you have 2 strikes on the bomb, it changes your offset, but he's attacking this module early as it happens, so he doesn't have to deal with that. Fizz number is right. Now it's over to gamepad. Hopefully that knob beeping hasn't stressed you out either. Candela knows he's got it set, so he can just set it and forget it. Of course, if the knob is wrong at deadline, then that's a strike. So sometimes that beeping can be a prelude to a strike, but so far, so good. Gamepad is the module that was just solved. Get that knob set upwards. And it's time for combination lock. Gotta get 3 numbers, dial it in, first right, then left, and then right. In this case, Candela actually got it wrong, but due to a quirk of the module that's too complicated to explain right now, the module creator decided we're not going to give anyone any strikes to this module. So, simple as that. You notice he tells the spectators back there to be quiet. This is time for safety safe. Notice the dials clack into place. Right there, at a certain slot. He's got to get all the 6 dials first of all, adjusted to that point. It's cautious, but he knows he can afford the time. There are techniques where sometimes diffusers will go back and forth between a couple of dials to try and set them most efficiently. Perhaps if Candela adopted one, he could get this module done even quicker. Now he's off to calculate a number of offsets. First, a global offset, which will apply to all the dials, and then individual offsets for each of the dials based on the 6 characters of the serial number. Works out pretty nicely. There's 6 digits or characters in that serial number, and 6 dials to apply them to. Aside from the fact that the 6th dial actually requires you add up all those offsets on the end, because why not? Like I said, these bomb manuals are not always straightforward. The 2nd and 3rd dials seem to have a 0 offset here in this case. And all the lights are green, so he's got it. Knob is set, and we are 23 modules down, 77 to go. Zoo is a tricky one, however. He's going to get a line of 5 animals by analyzing port types and observing a hexagonal sort of chart he's looking at. It's a series of 5 hexagons that gives him a line of 5 animals. When he opens that crate door, he has 5 or 6 seconds to get the correct 3 animals in that line and press them in order, in sequence. So you're going to see a lot of rehearsal as you watch Candela here. He's going to start reciting those animals out loud to himself. Here we go. Timer started. And he's beaten the clock. The bulb now, based on the color of the bulb, based on the transparency or opacity of the bulb, and based on whether it's on or off, he will follow a number of steps, which give him instructions along the line of unscrew the bulb, then go to step 4. Press O, then go to 6. For example, if the light is on at this stage, press O. I'm not to say that's strictly what Candela was looking at, but there are rules along those lines. Get that knob set correctly. This is alphabet, where those letters form a nonsense word in a word bank. Candela simply has to identify that word and then punch it in the correct sequence. Just like so. Rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. Remember the Big Bang Theory? That's the show that popularized this game, but it's been around for longer than that. Candela has to find the losing symbol and then press the 2 that beat that symbol. It is convenient how Forget-Me-Not and the knob spawn next to each other. The placement of all the modules on this bomb is completely random. But it is nice that he only has to look in one spot between module solves. This is German Who's on First, from the translated module series. The intention of the modded modules was actually to give the international audience a chance to appreciate the punniness of Who's on First and the tricky word games it creates. If by chance you happen to be German looking at this, you might recognize the similarity between some of the words and sounds you see in the labels here. But then the modded community decided, hey, these are pretty fun, and they decided to put it on the Centurion as well. There we go. Onto rhythms now. That light is blinking rhythmically. In this case, it's 8th dotted quarter, 8th dotted quarter, quarter. Based on that, he has to make 2 key presses, either holding or tapping, that is to say, press and immediately release the button, for a certain number of beats. So it was hold the barred 8th note for 1 beat, and tap the single 8th note for 1. Just like that, Candela's got 29 solves. On to resistors now. The batch of 3 colorful bands, you can ignore that single one on the side there, gives him 2 resistances. Based on these, he has to first obtain a target resistance from the serial number and batteries, and then determine whether he needs to connect the target letters, which in this case will be A and C, either through the top, through the bottom, or perhaps more complicated, in series or in parallel. A little bit of circuitry knowledge required, although the manual does explain it. This is a connection in series. And B and D are sometimes connected when there is a single D battery, which you saw in the top right corner there. This is the screw now, a 3-stage module. First, Candela has to identify the hole to insert the screw into, one of those 6 colors there. And then they'll be asked a series of if otherwise statements, such as if the position in the row is equal to the number of distinct port types, press this button. If white is opposite magenta vertically, press this button, and so forth. It is tricky to do these edge work calculations sometimes. Hard to put a finger on why, but I know for sure that I'm not 100% accurate at them either. And there we go, 3 stages done. And 32 stages of Forget-Me-Not. Lettered keys is a fairly trivial module here. He just has to apply simple tests to that number. Is it a multiple 3? Simple rules like that. In Tic-Tac-Toe, Candela will determine which number to place the proposed piece in. For example, the up next O indicates he needs to place an O on this tic-tac-toe grid. He has to avoid making tic-tac-toe. If he's instructed to place it in a number, but he can't place it there because it would form a tic-tac-toe, he must pass the piece instead. There's one other complication you'll see once he presses a button here. There goes the grid. Of course, for multiple reasons, Candela's noted this down already. 1, he needs it to solve the module now, and 2, for the souvenir question later. Two presses remaining. The middle left and the middle middle have yet to be pressed. Passes the O. Alright, just the center now. And since neither piece can fit there, he just double passed the module. He knows he can just spam the pass button. We tend to play this game a lot. We know some of the quirks of these modules, such as the fact that you can just double pass by hitting the pass button quickly without any issue. This is follow the leader. First, Candela finds the correct wire to cut, and then he references a table full of certain rules. Knob's all set there. I think he got worried there for a second. He references a series of rules, such as previous wire is red, blue, or green. Previous wire leads to an even number. Previous wire should be cut. You notice he keeps looking back and forth between the table and the wires. By cutting that wire successfully, he's determined that all the other wires should not be cut, so that vindicates all his decisions to that point. And there's a solve. Notice the up label rotates on that knob with every single activation. Finding which way is up is part of the challenge of the knob. Next module is Adventure Game. You notice Candela scrolls through the items and the weapons first. From offhand knowledge, he knows that if there's a potion among those items, it would change the statistics of his hero. Not this time, though. So he notes down the 5 items, and notes down the 3 weapons, Broadsword, Grimoire, and Nasty Knife. Only now does he go over the hero's statistics, and certain atmospheric conditions, and all these will help him determine what items he should use first, and then which weapon he should use to gain the biggest statistical advantage over that lizard. He has to use all the correct items first, and then the weapon. And he's got to check over each and every one of those 5 items. It's basically a true-false condition for each one. And then a numerical comparison for each of the weapons. "34 modules solved, 24 minutes in." This is a pretty comfortable pace right now. There's the win. Nice of the module to say victory and congratulate him on that, but it's also kind of convenient that the enemy name disappeared. Perhaps Souvenir could make use of that. You see where this is going? This is third base, in case the Abbott and Costello references aren't getting through. This is an upside-down version of Who's on First, so that display is SNZX. And the top left label, for example, is NHXS. Once again, 3 stages will solve that module. And there's the third stage successfully done. Checking on that forget-me-not again. And it's on the broken buttons now. Following a series of rules, Candela has to press anywhere up to 5 buttons from this confusing array. Pressing duplicate words is part of it, so he's bound to press one of those wait buttons. 4 more button presses remaining. Well, maybe not. If none of the conditions apply, Candela's got to back himself on that judgment. If he thinks none of the rules apply to any of the buttons, he's going to have to plump for one of those submit buttons. That's very well done. That could be a scary leap of faith. Adjacent letters is a tricky exercise. A letter has to be pressed if either certain letters are horizontally adjacent to it, or certain letters are vertically adjacent to it. It's very straightforward, but it's tough to do that 12 times. The worst part is, if the submission is wrong, it doesn't say where the errors are, how many errors you have. So it can be tough to find the mistake, were Candela to strike. Not finding a lot of letters to press, he's already on the F. And the M goes straight forward and he's got it. In binary LEDs, he has to find the sequence of numbers, which are flashing in binary, convert those to base 10, and then cut a wire precisely on the correct binary LEDs as they come on. It's a tricky timing exercise, which he passes. Where to now? Logic. Each of the letters refers to a statement about the edgework on the bomb. For example, bomb contains a serial port. Could be the letter P, for example. Those strange characters, the V underline stands for XOR, a logical gate. The V for OR, the vertical bar for not and, the upward caret for and he has to reply false true for each of those 2 statements. Very good. 40% of the way there. On to creation now. This is based on an online game. By combining elements, Candela has to combine the elements in order to create a target object. The edge work, as well as the fact that day 1 is windy and air is in the bottom left corner, will all point him to what he, the great creator, at least for the purposes of this module, is supposed to make. Sometimes those weather conditions on the subsequent days will force him to substitute certain elements. There is a nice little shortcut many players of the creation module know offhand, and that's that life is the essence of every target item. So by knowing the swaps, earth and water, fire and air, energy and swamp, you know that life will always be correct. Oops. One would think that weeds would have to have been used in the next exchange, but by making a combination that did not work, unfortunately, that is Candela's first strike. A strike affects modules in many different ways, but on creation, it involves a complete reset of the module, which is going to set him back time-wise. One strike in and of itself is not particularly damaging, but now Candela knows he's got to hone down. Focus just that little bit more, as if he hasn't done enough focusing already for the past half hour. Heat Wave Day 1 fires in the top right. Never forgetting that knob. Notice he's going back and forth between the notes. He knows how to make life, but he has to note down each and every weather condition. Souvenir will ask. Life has been made again. It could be a different item this time. He might not make weeds again. Looking good again. There's the ghost, and we got creation solved. Good recovery. Right on cue, the knob is beeping again. This is Point of Order, where Candela has to figure out which cards he can legally play, then pick up his hand and play a card within 4 seconds. Either 4 or 5 seconds. You see him reciting the legal cards to himself. 4 seconds.
Have a nice day. Now.
Thank you. How very polite. That's the rule for playing a 7 in Mao. Ooh, sorry, did I say the rules allowed? Card for talking. Cryptography now. This is a cryptography applied to a passage from A Christmas Carol. That's the Scrooge and Marley story. All the letter E's are correct in the passage. Candela's objective is to take those 5 letters at the top there and press them in the order that they appear in the actual passage. That third to last word is likely Scrooge because it ends in the letter E. It's a 7-letter word ending in E. I actually took a previous take of this and I said, oh, it's Scrooge because it's a 7-letter word ending in Scrooge. I'm a genius. 43 solves now. We're on to Light Cycle. A sequence of 6 lights. And Candela needs to make 6 exchanges based on the serial number to get a new sequence of 6. And then very carefully input them by pressing them in the correct order with that single button as they light up. There's that knob again. 40 seconds every time the knob activates. No doubt Candela heard it. He just knows he has enough time before he has to go check on it. Gets to a good stopping place. You see, he knows he's down to 15 seconds. He had the time. Very good time management there. Without missing a beat. Inputted it in the most efficient time possible. He could have let it go by, but he had the sequence of 6 perfectly. Hexamaze now. This hexagonal maze is a subset of a larger hexagonal maze. The symbols are used to help Candela orient where exactly this sub-maze is. Then he has to navigate that cyan pawn out the correct edge while avoiding the walls that are invisible on the module but not on the manual page. Yay! That was a bit of a deep cut reference, I apologize. Plumbing now. Certain pipes on the left will be inputting water, and Candela has to route that water over to certain pipes on the right. Edgework conditions will tell him which pipes on the left and which pipes on the right will accept the water, and then he has to rotate those pipes such that the water flows from one end to the other. There can be no leaks in his design at all. Going to work now. Looks like he's got green and yellow input and yellow and red output. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's just a blue to blue connection. Not so lucky this time. He's got to connect those pipes down there. Now he's got a loop. This should be airtight. Perfect. On to Minesweeper now. This works just like the classic Windows game. First is to find which color square to dig. And then it works just like Minesweeper. The numbers, of course, telling him how many mines are in all the 8 squares adjacent to that number. The sound effects are a recent addition to this module. They're very nice. Especially that one, the sound of victory. Checking Forget-Me-Not again, knob is silent. And it's on a semaphore. Remember that pair of keys from earlier? If Candela had done semaphore before he had turned that pair of keys, he actually would have bricked the bomb, because it's one of those 6 so-called post-keys modules that I mentioned he must not solve in advance of turning the keys. Right now he's checking through. He's looking for a semaphore character that shows a letter or number not on the serial number. Notice he scoots right past the northeast and north-northeast aspects. Those just indicate letters or numbers. He knows that offhand. And we've got a loser. There's the one not in the serial number. Good save on the knob there. He had to flick that up there with 3 seconds to go. Skewed slots now. Pretty straightforward, just an abstract mathematical calculation for each of the digits. Certain rules can be very complicated, such as referring to original digits. They're not complicated, they're tricky rules. You have to read that manual very carefully. On a strike, it would reset and it would spin again and spin 3 entirely new digits. That's a quick solve time if it's right, and it is. The exclamation points, he knows a stage is coming in. The 50th stage of Forget-Me-Not. Yahtzee now, he's trying to get 5 of a kind using the dice. He can keep the dice only in certain circumstances, based on the color of the dice, based on the fact he rolled a pair, and so on and so forth. Interesting choice to spam the roll button there. I would have tried to keep a 4th dice, because on average it would have taken him 36 presses of that roll button to get a pair of two specifically. It was safe for him to do so, But in this case, bless RNG, he's got it. Connection check now. He has to find which connection graph. It's like nodes and lines connecting them. It's a game of connect the dots, essentially. And he has to indicate via red and green whether the two numbers are connected or not. Simple as that. What is this, a broken module? No, it's just Blind Alley. The buttons on Blind Alley are actually just the segments of the module. Again, Candela's done that really quickly. I actually asked him about that, and he mentioned if I see two conditions that are true in Blind Alley, I just press the button. It's very unlikely that there are 3 that are true. It gives a list of 4 edgework conditions for each segment. And the odds of 3 being true are unlikely, so if he gets 2, he figures that's good enough because he's looking for the segments that have the most number of conditions true. This is murder based on Clue or Cluedo, depending on where you're from. It's 4 suspects, 4 weapons, and a body found in a certain room. The way the lookup tables work, only one of the suspects and one of the weapons will be found in the same room. He has to identify what that is and then put in that suspect, that weapon, and that room, and make the grand accusation. Alright, Candela's on the case. It was Mrs. White with the rope in the ballroom, yes. That'll teach you to mess with Mr. Body. Checking Forget-Me-Not again. Cheap checkout now. A list of 6 items are being purchased by a customer, and they've paid $22 for them. Candela has to total up the prices of each. Some of the items are weighted. There's a weighted price. It's also an interesting module because it depends on literally what day of the week in real life he started the Centurion bomb on, because that will apply a certain sale price to each of the items. Sometimes an anti-sale price where it inflates the price of the item. The other fun part of cheap checkout is when the customer pays too little, and then you get to affectionately kick the customer by just hitting the submit button. And the customer goes, "Oh, sorry, 1 second," and then pays more money. Going over the calculations now. Cha-ching! Stage 5-5 is a 5. Foreign exchange rates is just a simple lookup table. He's looking for the target currency. And using the ISO code I think it is, he identifies what button to press. On to complicated buttons now. This employs a 4-way Venn diagram, much like the complicated wires module from the base game. Based on, is it red, is it blue, does it say press, is it in the middle? It's very possible none of those buttons, whatever he gets from the Venn diagram tells him whether or not to press that particular button. It's very possible he might be told ostensibly, don't press any of the buttons, in which case he has to back himself on that judgment Candela does, and apply a different rule in that case. He's giving it that double check like that's exactly what's happened, and he's pressed the right button. Of course, I don't know that for sure, but he definitely gave that a second look there, like it was something weird. This is German Morse now. That lantern at the top is blinking a Morse word. He simply has to transcribe that word from Morse to English, and then on a lookup table it tells him what frequency to transmit based on the word he received, which just so happens to be the frequency he started at. Alright, it's on to the reverse side now, and this is Simon Screams. This time, although the sequence of flashing lights grows, Candela's reply doesn't grow. It's just it's always going to be the same number of buttons, and perhaps different buttons every time. Rules such as 2 opposite colors didn't flash. Based on this and edgework conditions, he has to come up with a reply, the correct buttons to press. Sequence grows, but if it is too adjacent didn't flash, that rule still should be correct. Purple, orange, green. Hey, that's Pog! Candela has to note down the entire sequence for Souvenir, as he gets that third stage correct and the buttons disappear. He does have to flip over the bomb after every solve. In Caesar Cipher, Candela simply has to identify how much to shift each letter by. It's the same offset. In this case, the offset is +1. So for example, E becomes F, S becomes T. Very efficiently done. Just like that, 60 stages of Forget-Me-Not. He's over to Ice Cream now. This is a tricky Ice Cream stand to run. First of all, it's only open when there's an even number of minutes remaining on the bomb, which there is right now, 54 minutes and change. The other issue is that all our customers, like Dave, are allergic to practically everything. So he has to balance the fact that the customers are allergic, have preferences, make sure he's still open, and sell the correct scoop of ice cream accordingly. This usually takes me about 1.5 minutes to set up, but he's got that done in about 30 seconds. He's got 20 seconds remaining. Dare I ask if he can serve another scoop before we close? Is a 3-stage module. Oh wow, that was quick. That's very well done, because now he's got that third stage and could go to work on it. In the worst case scenario, I suppose Candela could have moved on to another module. Oops! And that is a knob strike. It should have set down, but Candela got to it just a little too late. He got it over to right, but it should have been down, unfortunately. Not too troubled by that strike, I don't think, but you don't want to just spend those strikes willy-nilly either. They can blow up the bomb if you get all 10, so can't just ignore that knob. So Taylor wants cookies and cream, but the ice cream stand is closed for business, so he cannot sell right now. Let's see what he goes for. He's looking at wire placement, but ice cream's just about open. Yep. There he goes, selling cookies and cream to Taylor. Notice an actual scoop of cookies and cream flies in. And the next stage of Forget-Me-Not appears. Now it's on the laundry. Interestingly, there's a multiple of 6 solves. There's 60 solves exactly. It makes the calculations on laundry easier. It's not a requirement to solve it, but it just makes it easier. And laundry is fun because it makes light of those strange symbols you see on your tags, and you never quite know what they are. Don't wash tennis balls? Don't, no Christmas crackers? Like, what does all this mean? What is this bucket? What is this square? Well, it's up to Candela to sort it all out. "30-degree wash. Wet cleaning. This is a module of complicated edgework calculations to help him get a garment, item material, item color. And it tells him how to handle each aspect of that item, which he's got correct. Delightful seeing that coin just slot in right there. Coin and a nice green light. Wire placement is a relatively straightforward module, although the manual isn't laid out straightforwardly, but the essence of it is cut the wire if it's at this coordinate and this color. So, disorganized manual or not, Candela's got it. Chord qualities now. he's being indicated a certain chord quality, which the arrows point out. Then he has to turn this chord quality into another one by turning the note into a chord quality and the given chord quality into a answered note, and then reply with that into the tuner. The creator of this Centurion mission, Ash the Bash, is actually good at just looking at the chord and just giving it. For example, oh, that's F major 7, for example. He just knows it offhand. If only I'd taken music theory in high school. Four notes is the reply. Beautiful. Conveniently, the chord arrows disappear because, you guessed it, Souvenir's going to ask. In piano keys, Candela takes the 3 musical symbols, speaking of music modules, and replies with Final Fantasy in this case. Gotta press all those notes carefully, very well done. Ooh, that was an intensification of the music. I guess we're halfway through. This is emoji math. I argue it's emoticon math. You see how that's that indifferent face with the bar and the colon, the parenthesis? Those made digits in a mathematical equation, and Candela, of course, is very good at math, so that didn't take long at all. The clock now, based on the attributes of the clock, for example, what color are the numerals? What color is the casing? Is there a second hand? Candela has to put the clock backwards a certain number of hours and backwards a certain number of minutes. It's convenient because we drop below half time. That's what determines whether Candela goes forwards or backwards. If you set the hours back, he has another set of questions to determine how many minutes. Goodness gracious, that's a long way back. I think you have to go a full half hour back, which is the most number of minutes you have to add or subtract. If it was more than that, he could potentially add an hour. He could subtract an hour and add minutes back, so it wouldn't have to be 30 clicks. So that was the most number of clicks he had to do to set the minutes hand back. But he did that accurately, and it's on the colored squares right now. Pretty simple. Based on how many squares have been pressed and the previous color pressed, determines what the next color or next line of squares is Candela has to press next. Got told to press the topmost row for each of those. And that's a solve. 2/3 of the way there. Making good time. As we move on to astrology. 3 symbols will produce a single-digit positive or negative score. If Candela gets a positive score and a digit, he has to press Good Omen when that digit appears in the actual bomb timer. A negative digit, same thing with the Poor Omen. And if he gets 0, then it's just no omen anytime. This is a series of lookup tables as well as finding the letters of these symbols in the serial number. And there's stage 69. Get that knob set up. And it's on to Friendship. This is from My Little Pony, and I do not know My Little Pony, I'm afraid to say. What happens is Candela uses these symbols of harmony, I guess? And based on where they are positionally, either highest or leftmost, exclude a couple, and then the remaining 4 symbols indicate rows and columns of a table, with which he finds 4 more attributes of wholesomeness or poniness, of which only one of those 4 appears somewhere on the module.
Yay.
Yay. 3D Maze is next. This is a difficult one. If Candela smashes into any of those walls by accident, that is a strike. But you notice he was stepping on those letters. He stepped on the letters B, C, H, as well as that compass letter E. E for east, rather. That may be the cardinal direction he needs. He needs to figure out which of those 4 cardinal directions he needs in order to solve the module, but it could be a decoy. But by looking at the maze diagram in the manual, he can identify where the actual coordinate is, where the actual cardinal direction lies. And he's just going to make sure he finds a familiar, perhaps line of letters that he can get himself navigated around. Now he finds a dead end, but that line of letters might help him. Blank B, blank C, blank. Maybe that's a unique line of letters in the manual. Nope, no knob activation right now. And he notes that down, so it looks as though north is Candela's actual intended cardinal direction. So he has to calculate a certain coordinate in the maze, and then find the first wall north of that coordinate and smash into the wall. It's a trust exercise, because if it's wrong, of course, he strikes. So there's no, like, actual finish line in this maze. His only way out is through that magic wall. Platform to 9 3/4, I guess? You see one of those major modules to the right, turn the key. Remember, 27 minutes 42 seconds, Candela must turn that key. If he's late, this bomb is over. 3D Maze is correct, goes right through that wall. And we are on 70 solves. Text field should be a relatively straightforward module. The only trap is he must not press the same letter twice, but also, it's a tough exercise in identifying that the target letter is C. Good job figuring that out, Kappa. Shapeshift now. This looks like one of those business flowchart PowerPoints where you've got the shape bubbles, arrows pointing out, yes or no, and you have to follow those flowchart arrows very carefully on this module to determine which shape you landed twice, and that determines the shape that you, in this case Candela, needs to output. Pointy, pointy! There we go. Mouse in the maze now. No penalty for smashing into the walls in this maze. Candela smashed into 2, actually. Candela needs to find a torus, which is a floating ring of a certain color. And hopefully from the layout of the maze can identify which one of 6 mazes he's in. And based on this has to find a target sphere, one of 4 target sphere colors. Get to that sphere, stand on it, and then hit that white button to confirm his choice. Go, mouse, go! Probably ended up on the opposite edge of that torus. Knowing that the torus is on an edge rather than a corner or a segment, say, might help Candela identify which maze he's in. Usually narrows it down between 2, maybe 3 at most. He's got 6 diagrams in that manual to look at. Gotta figure out which one actually corresponds to the maze he's in. There's a blue sphere. I wonder if that's his target. It would make all the sense in the world, but something in me thinks it's a little too straightforward for this game. It could very well be. There are instances of that where the color of the torus matches the color of the sphere. Green sphere? Yes, he's got it. Found his way out. Still 40 minutes remaining. With only 27 modules remaining. Chess now, by scrolling on the numbers and only the numbers, Candela will get 6 chess coordinates on a 6x6 chess grid. He has to identify which 6 of the pieces go with those coordinates, and then find the one and only square on that grid that is not captured by any of the 6, using normal FIDE chess rules. All while still getting distracted by that knob every other minute or so. I must confess, even I forget the knob is there. He just handles that distraction so effortlessly. Under 40 minutes now. Enters Charlie 2, and he's got it right. Sorry, C2. I drifted into the NATO phonetic alphabet there. That's only helpful on the voice bombs when we're doing it as a team. Symbolic password now, using more of those classic vanilla keep-talking keypad symbols. To orient the 6 symbols the right way. Not hard at all. Boolean Venn diagram, he has to identify which segments of that Boolean Venn diagram, where A is the top circle, B the bottom left, and C the bottom right, make that logical statement above true. A, not and, parentheses, B, and C. Very good. Might as well check on the knob while you're in the neighborhood. On to German password right now. There's a word bank of 30 potential words that Candela could have as passwords, but the letters offered by the module only allow for one such word to be formed, and he has to find that one single word. You can see by that DE label that it is one of the translated German modules. Notice he identifies the letter and then scrolls past it, then scrolls back to it once he realizes the word is actually correct. Saves him a little time that way. You don't have to align the letters in case the word is wrong. But if it is right, it's just a click away to get all the letters in touch. Gets word search done before I could explain it. The 4 corner letters gave him a word bank, essentially. And it's right on to Modules Against Humanity. Edgeword conditions will give him starting cards to set. And then he has to see whether either of those 2 modules is on the bomb somewhere. Button sequence in white is not, that's another modded module we use. But 3D maze in black is. So with this information in mind, he adjusts the card one final time. And submits, and gets the nice happy beep. Coordinates now. That 7x5 refers to a grid. The remaining aspects of coordinates will give him various coordinates encoded in many different ways, but exactly 2 of those coordinates form essentially a pair. They refer to the exact same coordinate, just in their own special way. And Candela simply has to identify that pair and press the red button on each one. Matters whether there's punctuation around it, like quote marks or parentheses. Double checking. Yes, he's got it. That's fortunate. There were about 5 other coordinates on that module, I would estimate. And he's found a pair straight away. 80 solves, 80% of the way there. Candela's making really good time. I would say the biggest threat to his run right now would be turn the key at this point. As we move on to square button here, more determinations to determine whether to hold the button or tap the button, although the rules there are decidedly harder. Holding the button, solid orange means release when the seconds digits add up to either 3 or 13, such as 49. 4 plus 9 is 13. Monsplode Fight. A game totally not based on any anime or gaming series whatsoever. Candela has to identify the move that is the most damaging versus this Monsplode. Has to take into account the types of each move, the types of the Monsplode, and make the mathematical calculation. Stage 83 is a 0. You skip down to color math. In color math, the 4 dots on the left represent 4 digits of a number. The 4 dots on the right represent 4 digits of another number. And the green A just means addition. Add them all up to produce yet another 4-digit number, which Candela will input back into colors. Here we go. Knob is beeping away. He knows he's taking care of that. Just a stage of forget-me-not to collect, that's all. Smooth sailing. Fast math now. This is the one I've been looking forward to seeing. Candela has to calculate an offset, a number to add or subtract, and then those 2 letters give him a row and column in a table, which give him a number in turn. That number plus or minus the offset is the number he has to input into the module. Good time for this needy to come up because this is fast math, and the catch of the module is that he will only have 10 seconds to give every answer. Here we go. Timer's ticking away on the right side, you see. Not 3 stages, but 4 stages, in this case, is enough to solve it. Coming down the last home stretch, the last 6th of the bomb right here, as he brings up more semantics, which is a difficult module to give the answer to. To calculate is tricky as well. Those 3 lanterns blink a single Morse character each on repeat. You turn those into numbers, for example, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, perform a bunch of mathematical calculations with 2 more letters in the serial number. The end result becomes a letter. The catch is, when Candela gets that letter, he has to put it back into Morse and transmit the Morse literally by tapping on that white button. Long for a dash, short for a dot. It is every bit the exact science it sounds like it is. And these aren't tricky calculations, this might take him some time. Bit of a head shake there. This is definitely one of those modules you want to double check. It's tough to spot your error if you get it wrong. At least if you transmit the wrong letter, Morse Mathematics has the decency to tell you what letter you transmitted wrong, in case you're wrong. This is B for Bravo. And Candela's got it. Very good. Yet another deep breath he can take. He's overcome that hurdle. He's looking at bitmaps now. This is the module he looked at the very, very beginning of the bomb, and it's now to solve it. by looking at how many pixels are black and white in each of those 16 pixel quadrants, he's usually able to determine which answer from 1 through 4 is the correct one to press. There we go. Microcontroller. All those pins will light up, and it is Candela's job to place 5 white lights and 5 colorful lights. Based on a lookup table, it's fairly simple. Oop. Change of plans. Candela's actually going to go after the souvenir now. He sees that timer. He's about 3 minutes away from turning the key, and he figures now is probably the best time to start taking care of that. It gives him something to do while passing the time and waiting for the big moments. The knob was correct on left as it happened there. Just watch just how many questions Souvenir can churn out. And sometimes the module is capable of asking more than one possible question, even though it will always ask one question per module. Ice Cream, for example, could have asked about previous customers' names, or which flavor was on offer but not sold. As we cross under a half hour to go. Last letters in fast math. After doing that 10-second speed exercise, Candela had to remember that last pair of letters. The pawn and hex maze, of course, disappeared off the edge once Candela solved that module. There was Scion. Tending to the knob, it's back to Souvenir. Key is about 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes away. Neutralization could have asked about the color of the acid instead. Monsplode Fight could have asked about what the Monsplode actually was, or which move was selectable but not the correct answer. Adventure Game could have asked about the enemy name. I joked about it earlier, but it turned out not to be the question. Murder could have asked about weapons. Could have asked about who was a suspect but not the murder. Key is now under a minute to go. Candela's holding his nerve, still knowing he's got time to answer these questions. Heaven forbid he has forgotten. Coordinates could have asked about the first answer he inputted instead of the grid size. Has that knob, 30 seconds to key. 3D Maze could have asked about the 3 letters in the maze rather than the cardinal. Alright, Candela, key time. There we go. But once he remembers the key, it's actually not that tough an exercise. He's got a full second to react. And there we go. That was a big moment in this bomb, because now one of probably the single biggest threat to it has been disarmed right now. Yeah, that's a big deep breath there. Chord qualities could have asked about the actual chord quality. This is a nasty question from Simon States. It asked about which colors did not flash in that. Souvenir is quiet, but you notice the green light didn't turn on. There are still modules to solve, and still modules that still haven't been solved or haven't asked their question yet. Candela moves on to bitwise operators right now. Bit of unlucky RNG. He's rolled XOR as his logical gate. If it was AND or OR, he could have potentially only compared one of the 2 pairs of logical statements about the edge work, and possibly been able to solve the module quicker. As it is, he's got to compare both elements of the pair and determine whether exactly one is true of the 2. Yes, he's got it. You hear Souvenir beeping again. Of course, he can leave that alone for the time being. And now the Rubik's Cube. Let's just put a Rubik's Cube on a bomb, just for fun. This can be solved like a normal Rubik's Cube. It does not strike. But apparently this would drive speed cubers nuts, because the colors of the centers are completely generated at random. Apparently on a so-called regulation Rubik's Cube, the centers would be oriented a certain way. So in this case, it's just easier to use the manual's provided instructions, which give Candela a series of 10 moves based on the centers of the up, left, front, right, and down faces. For a module that can't give a strike, this is still pretty high stakes, because this can be a tricky one at times. It's baffled me before, personally. In fact, it did when we did the team solve. This cube's coming together quite nicely, though. Oh, gorgeous. 89 solves. Onto number pad. You noticed we had 89 stages of Forget-Me-Not and 89 solves. When the key was turned, the one key was turned, it did not give a stage of Forget-Me-Not. Were it capable of doing that, it would be capable of locking up the bomb. If the key only had, say, 1 minute remaining, and Forget-Me-Not was waiting on that key to turn, that would be a pretty bad bomb. And whoever was defusing it would probably feel quite salty before blowing up on it, so to prevent that from happening and to give them a fighting chance, the key and Forget-Me-Not do not interact with one another. Number pad, you can imagine the colors of the keys are what gives Candela the code to punch in. There's some sneaky overrides on page 2 which you remember to check. That manual can trip some people up based on the way it's laid out. That's the nature of the game. On to probing now. You see he's checking for the resistances in the most efficient way possible, because there's a resistance missing from each wire. By connecting each one against that red-white wire, it essentially gives the most efficient way for him to identify which resistances are in each wire, the one that is missing from each. From there, the manual is literally just a couple of paragraph blurbs that tell him if this, then that, otherwise the other. The only stressful part about it is that in order to submit an answer, he has to leave those two connected for about 5 or 6 seconds or so. So it's going to run away, and yes, the stage on Forget-Me-Not augmented, so that was clearly a solve. You see that 91st solve light up on the top right corner of your screen. Still only 2 strikes. Web design now. Based on the lines of text, based on the margins, the font families, don't let there be Comic Sans. You have to determine whether to accept, consider, or reject the code provided. $22.22 remaining now. But only 9 modules remain, and Candela's making very good time right now. And now 8 to go, as reject is the correct answer. Now 00, don't get frightened. Something unusual is about to happen, and I'll point it out to you as it occurs. That is not a strike. That is just a red light and a buzzer. That is a deliberate quirk of 00, whereas that's the submit button. It does not give a real strike unless Candela is on 0 something. The quirk of this module is that Candela needs to find 0000, but if he's on 0 something, that second digit glitches out, so unless he's paying attention to the manual, he can't tell just from looking at the module whether he's on 00. But he knows he is, so that is a solve. Only Connect is based on the UK quiz show by the same name. It's a delightful show. Check it out on YouTube sometime. Candela first has to identify which hieroglyph to enter based on a series of 3 true-false conditions for each hieroglyph. And whichever hieroglyph has a unique number of true statements is the correct one to click on. Alright! Horned Viper is the correct answer here. Now, there are 3 groups of 3 letters all belonging to the same language, which the manual points out. For example, the L/, the C acute, and Z acute should all be Polish, I believe, from offhand knowledge. There's the solve. 94 solves. As Candela completes the connecting wall. Looking around, trying to find the remaining modules he hasn't solved yet. Microcontroller right here is one of them. The pins are numbered 1 through 10. It's a bit confusing. The dot indicates pin 1. It goes down the row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from right to left. And then from left to right on the top row, left to right, 6 through 10. So it kind of makes a U shape for numbering the pins. Once you get past that complication, it's just a matter of placing the correct colors to the correct numbered pins. And that's a rather straightforward process. In 7's place, now pin 1, you see a new pin lights up every time he hits OK. The other complication is that Souvenir will ask for the pin sequence, which is why he keeps going back to his notes there, noting down the sequence in which the pins lit up. That's 7. That's 8. Down, and finally this should be the red light, the one not placed. Very good. Stage 95. 18 minutes remaining. Knob's blinking away, but he's got that set correctly. He's on to seashells. She shells, she sells on the she soar. That doesn't sound right. But Candela's going to make it right by replying with a series of presses on those 5 buttons. In reply to this derivation of the classic tongue twister. Can, toucan. Imagine trying to communicate that one. So there is that difficulty removed, but it's still a tough lookup table because Candela gets a string of letters which he has to associate back into button presses for these similar seeming words. So maybe it's a touch easier, but not that much. Two down, 1 to go. See the stage lights lighting up. Victory is close. Game's done quick, here we come. Yes! Now it's on the Mystic Square. There's a skull hiding under one of those 8 tiles, as well as a knight, but Candela will simply be told where the skull is by picking out the correct number line. It will carefully trace a route through the numbers of that Mystic Square, and that'll tell him where the skull is lurking. If he finds the knight first, he's safe. If he gets the skull first, he strikes. As much as it's easy to say you can afford a strike, why chance it? No need to get complacent. Finds the knight first, it was in the top left corner. Now there's two ways to solve this mystic square from here. Either one, he can make the classic mystic square, which is the numbers 1 through 8 with a space in the bottom right corner, or a certain constellation, which is just an array of numbers. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the corners in reading order. So once he gets that set up there, we'll be on our way. Candela could definitely improve his time on this. I think even he would agree with that. I'm not sure if he's trying constellations or he had the wrong one, but it looks as though he's stopping in certain constellations, then starting again, which makes me think he's trying certain patterns, seeing they're not working, and having to try another one. He can't strike, he's found the night, so it's just a matter of time at this point. He's gotten the most important part out of the way. Gets to take a breather now as he goes over to the knob. Oh, so close. It always looks so close. There we go. 97 solves. So, we are nearing the end. It is Forget-Me-Not, it is Souvenir, and this thing called Silly Slots. So the manual tells him encoded instructions along the lines of, do you have a silly sausage? Do you have a sassy Sally? Which refer to colors and words, like silly could mean green, Sally could mean cherry, for example. If one of those rules does apply, his slots are in an illegal state and he has to pull the handle. Like here. The ideal scenario is where he can keep his slots, in which case the module just solves immediately. In the worst case scenario, we're going to be here for 4 stages of this. So more surmountable RNG in this game. Ooh, baby, a triple. 3 blue. There is a rule for that. Rolling again. Third stage. Remember, for Souvenir, he's still got a few remaining questions on the remaining modules. On Forget-Me-Not, he's been noting down 97 digits, and not only noting down those digits, but also doing a calculation for each one. Which, if I recall correctly, Candela tries the best he can to do it on the fly. We're going 4. Last stage either way. If he pulls again, this module is solved. Come on, Candela. Knob is blinking away, no problem. Left is correct. I almost said left is right, but that... yeah. I guess left is down in this case if you look at the knob from a certain perspective. These slots sometimes refer to previous stages, so subsequent stages of silly slots can be harder than the last one. That's literally the exact same LED configuration for knob. He got lucky there. Still just about 12 minutes remaining. And there it is. Forget-Me-Not goes blank. It is ready for input. just a matter of clearing out the souvenir questions. He could have done this in either order, but it just feels right ending with the forget-me-not. Bitmaps could have asked about any quadrant, could have asked about black pixels instead. Souvenir is an evolving module. It asks more and more questions over the life of the module. The creator always updates it as more modules come out. Tricky question. Probing, often you have to go back for the missing wire to determine where, for example, that red-white wire was. In this case, it's the first wire. And then he can look into his notes and realize, oh, the first wire was missing 10 Hz. Most of the colors are non-essential to probing, though the red-white one usually is, interestingly. Can't hurt to be too careful. That is a solved souvenir. You saw the green light come on. This forget-me-not is it. 97 digits he has to input perfectly. Well, he can strike, but I want to see him do it perfectly. He's done it before. Just crossing the 10 minute to go mark. Unless he completely stuffs up this forget-me-not, he's got this, Candela does. Just doing the last double checks here. Again, the significance of having that knob right next to the forget-me-not. You can ash that out of the corner of his eye, and he'll have plenty of time to get to it. It does need to point down. There we go. Minutes remaining. I guess Candela didn't get them all down, but my understanding is he got the most of them down. Either that or he's just really that quick at math. Oops. So the given digit at stage 6 is a 1, so either he mispressed or he's got a miscalculated digit there. In the worst case scenario where he's got the digit calculated, it doesn't look like a mispress, otherwise he'd be on his way. He might have to change a few digits, but Forget-Me-Not has a way of righting the ship eventually, where eventually your digits start becoming right again, so hopefully Candela only has to fix, say, just a few digits, 4 or 5 or so, and then he'll be right back on track. Got the press there. Candela efficiently groups his digits in groups of 6. You see Forget-Me-Not groups into batches of 3, so makes it easy for him to keep track. Very good. Brilliance again, 069 on the end. I apologize, I can't resist. Coming down the home stretch now. The knob is activated. It should be pointing left, but I wonder if Candela even needs to get to it. He might just have time to solve the Forget-Me-Not now and be done with it. Yes! That is a diffused Centurion! 6 minutes 50 seconds the final time. Look at the satisfaction. Woo! Yes! Check it out, guys. 100 modules diffused. We're going to games done quick! Yes! Well done, Candela. And thank you so much for watching this. Hopefully you enjoyed. And, my name's Yabagai. That was Candela. Thank you very much.